Hi everyone, so today I want to sit down and talk through all of my favorite makeup items from 2022. And in case you are new here, my name is Devin. I'm an esthetician and a beauty content creator. I've been making content for 5 years now, and I would love it if you would subscribe, and let's jump into the video. So first up, I want to talk about primers and what I look for in a primer, since my skincare is really my focus for my base. I don't really need anything super hydrating, and I'm kind of at a place in my life where I don't need something like super sticky and grippy because I'm kind of through wedding season. You know, I don't have like these hot summer long days where I need my makeup to last all day. So I usually go for something illuminating and glowy. And this year, the Chanel Le Beige, a sheer healthy glow highlighting fluid. This is the shade Sun-Kissed, has been my absolute go-to. And a lot of bronzy primers tend to pull more bronze. This I find to be much more neutral, and so I find it's much better of a color for fair skin than a lot of the like glowy bronzing primers that are out there. So I've really been loving this. It's also just beautiful under makeup, especially since my preference for base is a skin tint, but it's also beautiful on top if you just want to kind of dab and highlight certain areas. There are definitely glowy highlighters that I love that are not at the luxury price point, but I've just really been loving this one and how it looks and feels weightless under my skin tint. They have this in a few different shades, and they occasionally come out with a limited edition shade of this, but this is a permanent one and I freaking love this. It's so beautiful and I highly recommend it. I do think if you are looking for a really hydrating primer, I really did love the Armani one. This feels just like a really hydrating moisturizer. Again, skincare should be sort of like the base for what makes your makeup look really good, but in case it's not, this is a really great hydrating primer. I really enjoyed this, and I do think this is great if you really want a grippy primer that is going to make your makeup last all day. I did test it many times and it looked fantastic. My makeup looked fantastic at the end of the day. So if you are looking for a long wearing primer and you prefer something not illuminating or hydrating, I highly recommend this one, even though I will say this one is pretty hydrating, but it's has like that sticky, grippy feel to it that is really nice and makes your makeup last all day long. So when it does come to a base product, like I mentioned, I really prefer a skin tint. I work really hard on my skincare. I had cystic acne for many years and wore full coverage foundation, and I really like to just show off my skin and cover up any blemishes or flaws with a concealer, but just keep my base really natural and only apply it where I need it, or apply a sheer tint that just sort of like evens out my skin tone. And I think it'll be no surprise if you've been following me on Instagram that the Merit Minimalist Stick, which is sort of like a foundation and concealer in one, has been sort of my #1 most used. You can see that the writing and everything is completely gone on this, and I have basically nothing left. I have like this tiny amount left. This is like my 3rd tube, and I already have a backup of this. It's so good. It's been my most reached for. Just throw on. I love to use it in the center of my face. For today, for this video, I am wearing the Chanel, again, Le Beige. This is their Water Fresh tint in the shade Light, and I just filmed a full face of Merit because they're definitely my most used makeup brand this year, and so I will link that below if you want to see everything for Merit applied. But I really wanted to wear this today because even with the new launch of their Complexion Touch, I found myself still reaching for this because, again, I realized I really preferred something that had even less coverage. I just love how this evens out the skin tone once it kind of sets, and I really like to apply this with my fingers and then use a beauty blender to kind of just like even it out and make sure there's no streaks. But it sets down, it makes your skin look hydrated but not too dewy. It never makes my skin look oily. It just looks so beautiful, and it's crazy the longevity in this for it being so light and watery. The fact that it dries down and really sets itself, but then also lasts all day long. This is my pick, like when I'm going to weddings or anything. I'll wear this and again just kind of cover with concealer where I need, but everyone compliments the way my skin looks when I wear this, and I have like this much left in my medium light one, and in the summer I use medium light, in the winter I use light. If I'm in between, if I'm self tanning, I will combine the two. But I wish they had more shades of this, because they do have the complexion touch in a lot more shades. But I will say that because this is much more sheer, it's a lot more flexible, and again, my most worn, most loved product. I've been using this pretty much since it launched, and I cannot get enough of it. And it's expensive, but you need very little, and it lasts forever. I haven't even finished a bottle yet, and I've been using them for 2 years very regularly. So I think that says a lot. Again, I think it also has to do with how much you use. I don't use a crazy amount, but if you're using like 6+ pumps and you're like building on coverage, which I do think you can do with this, which is great, then you're gonna obviously go through it quicker, but I moved through it pretty slowly. So just because I also rotate things and try things, so that makes sense. But I do think if you spend the money on that, you will feel like you're getting your money's worth. An honorable mention is the Summer Friday Skin Tint. This was my other favorite complexion launch, and it's one of my most reached for products in 2022. It's just a really beautiful sheer tint, and it's kind of what I wish the Glossier tint was, you know, many years ago, because it's just hydrating. It, again, just kind of evens your skin tone, and it is sheer and flexible. I'm shade 1. I could have done shade 2, and again, because it is quite sheer, you can kind of use a couple different shades, and if you don't have a perfect match, it doesn't really matter that much. But they knocked it out of the park with this, because it makes everyone's skin look beautiful. And I will say that about both of these. I have oily skin friends who love both of these, dry skin friends who love both of these. Every skin type can really use these, because they just have a beautiful like satin finish that, you know, it's hydrating, but it doesn't emphasize texture, and just absolutely beautiful. And I highly recommend this if you have not tried it out and you like a skin tint. So when it comes to concealer, I had a very big standout, and that is the Armani Luminous Skin. And I have the shades 1.5 and 2. I actually use 2 in the winter, that's my current shade, and then I use 1.5 in the summer. They originally launched shades, and when they added in more, so the numbers don't quite match up, but they do have really great descriptions on Sephora for the shades, and I think this is very light neutral, or a very fair neutral, and then this is like fair neutral. So yeah, those are the 2 shades that I end up using. They're perfect matches for me, and I just love the array of undertones that they have. The thing that I like about this is that it's a medium coverage. It's a, I would say, satin natural finish, so it's not too matte, it's not too heavy, or I don't love anything full coverage. I just want it to really kind of brighten and look like skin. And I feel like these are so incredibly skin-like under the eyes, and I do feel like these set themselves, so you don't have to powder them, but if you do, they don't look gross and cakey as well. And I just love this formula, and I haven't really found anything to come quite as close to this. But I do want to give an honorable mention to the Make concealer. I don't have a perfect shade in this. This is quite light, and even though this is fair neutral, it's a little bit more yellow than the Armani ones that I have. But again, this has a very similar finish. It looks extremely skin-like. I do feel like I have to powder this though, but that's not really an issue. But it's so beautiful, and if the Armani is out of your price point, you should definitely check this one out if this sounds like it would be a fit for you. Again, it's sort of like that medium but buildable coverage that looks extremely natural, has like a satin luminous finish, but again, it's not like super glowy. It looks very, very skin-like, and this is really beautiful and a lot more affordable. But again, I feel like these last me a really long time, so again, worth the price for me. Again, talking about Make Beauty, their powders have blown me away this year. This is their Diffusion Set Translucent Pressed Powder. I have the shade Translucent Fair, and I have the light medium shade that's one up from this. But their powders are really, really hydrating, and they look hydrating on the skin. If you're someone who hates powders because you feel like they always make you look dry, you have to check this one out, because it has marine extracts, algae, and seaweed, or there's another like marine thing in there that helps hydrate the skin. But this is just so beautiful, and it really just takes down the shine, you know, and it makes that oiliness go away, but it never makes you look matte, which I love, because I really like to look glowy but not oily. And so Their powder is unmatched. It kind of actually reminded me a lot of the, I have it around somewhere, the Dior Backstage powder. It's more like a finishing powder, I would say, than a setting powder. I have not put this down since they launched it, and I haven't been reaching for any of my other powders. The other one that I did fall in love with this year, but mostly for under the eyes, and I think along with the rest of the planet because of TikTok, is the Givenchy. This is their Prism Libre travel size powder. So this is in the shade 1, which is like their purpley pastel powder, and I'm really glad I got the travel size because look at how much product is in there. There's so much product, and I love that you can use the powder puff, but I also love that I can just stick my brush in there and really just go under the eyes because I love the way this mattifies the under eyes and brightens, but I don't love how matte it is anywhere else on my face. So strictly an under eye powder, but really, really love this, and I totally get why people have been loving this so much this year too. For bronzers, I've been really loving the Bronze Balm by Merit. This is in the shade Clay, so it's the second from the lightest. And this is a warm tone. It's quite yellow toned, I find, but because it's so sheer, it looks just like a really natural warmth, and it's fantastic on fair skin. I wish that they did have a more neutral or cool tone shade because I would buy it instantly, but I do think this is still really beautiful on the skin, and if you're more neutral leaning, this will still be really beautiful on you. And I just love the ease of their products. Again, they just posted this yesterday. If it can't be applied in the back of a cab, then we're not interested. And I just love the ease of like throwing it on. You can really blend it out with your fingers. It's so easy to just like use their one brush and blend out all their products. They all layer seamlessly, and then I can even layer powders over this. For powder bronzer, I really love the Make, again, their Skin Mimetic Micro Suede Bronzer. This looks hydrating on the skin. It's like, again, if you prefer powders but you find that they look drying on your skin, or you have dry skin, you have to try their powder formula. It's so beautiful. This is the lighter shade Lunar. The shade is definitely leans like neutral warm, so it's still a little warm, and again, I wish they had a more cool tone shade for the fairest of skins because I haven't found a powder bronzer that's like truly cool tone besides my Hourglass that also looks really hydrating and glowy because it's just so finely milled. That one is still a favorite if you really want a cool tone bronzer. Their diffused light bronzer is fantastic. But again, I'm wearing this one today. I find it looks really natural on my skin, and in the summer I can go up one to the shade Aura, but this is the shade Lunar. And again, I love their packaging. It's just beautiful, magnetic. Powder formula is so finely milled and just so beautiful, and these two have been my top two, even though I loved the Chanel and the Deep. I also love the Makeup by Mario Skin Enhancer, also love that one. So I used a lot of different ones. Again, I also really love the Tower 28 Bronzino. There's just so many bronzers that I love. I'm kind of a bronzer junkie, and I always have like 5 or 6 on rotation, but those have all been pretty steady in my routine. But these are definitely my top 2 and most used bronzers this year. I'm a bit of a blush junkie, and I feel like I could list my top 10 or even 15 blushes of the year, but because I wear a pretty neutral look, it's one of the few products where I own a crazy amount because I like to change it up, and you know, I change up my lip or my blush typically. So I have 3 products for blushes that were definitely my most worn, at least through August, and then I kind of switched to more cool tones in the fall, but I want to give these 3 a shout out because I 100% still reach for them all the time. And the first one is, and it's still available, otherwise I wouldn't share it, but the Chanel Blush Lumiere in Brune Russie. It's this beautiful terracotta, and I feel like it's so dark and it looks scary, but it's beautiful, like a neutral but like leans a little bit terracotta. So beautiful on the skin. And on top of it, I am wearing the Playground by Victoria Beckham, which is stunning. It's just like a perfect neutral but leans definitely a little bit warm. Looks good on everyone. This is easily my most used because if I'm wearing a bright lip or I'm going to a wedding and I'm wearing like a big smoky eye, I don't want also to have a bright blush on. So this has kind of been my go-to when I'm wearing like a bold lip. I just like to have like a really neutral blush, and I'm like just a sucker for neutral, natural looking blushes. So those are both incredible, and I reach for them nonstop. Like the Chanel and the Victoria Beckham were like my summer blushes, but I also had kind of a third that I loved, and I feel like this formula does not get talked about enough. I have like 2 other friends I feel like have actually tried this, but the Neo Nude Color Melting Balm for Cheeks and Eyes. This is shade 30, which is a warm coral. This is a moussey texture that it goes on, you blend it like a cream, but then it dries down to a powder, but it looks luminous on the cheeks. And the thing that I've come to really realize about blushes is that I like them to have a luminosity on the skin and not be stark and matte, because you know the rest of my face and my skin is really glowy. And so I love that this looks, you know, it has like a satin to luminous sort of finish to it, but it dries down so it's not tacky or sticky. This would be a great kind of blush for someone who doesn't like a very balmy blush. Actually, I think both of these would, because again, this dries down to like a powder, but it still gives a luminosity on the cheeks. So these are so great for people who don't like a sticky or heavy feeling blush. They're great for summer. And again, even this one, the Chanel, has like a luminosity to it. All 3 of these just very similar colors, but just stunning. I'm going to do a video of just like December favorites and blushes I've been wearing recently, because I'm reaching for colors that I normally would have never worn in the last 5 years. So that's really exciting. So keep a lookout for that. But I would love to hear what blushes you guys loved, or if you wanted me to do like a top 10. I would even try them on. If that would be interesting to you, let me know. But yeah, it was really hard to narrow it down to 3, but I'm really proud of myself for doing it. For highlight, I have 2 here, but my most used was definitely Kava by Merit. This is one that really looks like almost nothing on the skin. It just gives sort of like a wet look, slightly wet. So it really just looks like you have really healthy skin and great skincare, and I love that. But it's definitely not for everyone. So if you like a highlighter that's there but barely there, like no one would be able to detect it on your skin, you're gonna love the one by Merit. It really just looks like skincare, and I've been really loving the one Bounce that came in their Lafette kit. It's just more of like a rosy gold, but this one's like a very neutral champagne, which is really flattering on my fair skin. I don't like anything that leads too yellow or too gold. So yeah, these are fantastic and definitely my most reached for, even though I will say they do stay like a hair tacky on the skin, but you could definitely powder them down and they wouldn't lose like a ton of their sheen if you didn't love that feeling. But yeah, I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, but I really loved and used these all year, and I love that these allow my skin to really be the star of the show. For brows, I picked 1 pencil and 1 brow gel, and so the pencil is the Make Beauty Blade Line. I use the shade Cool Brown. This is a perfect shade match for my brows. Anything that's too warm looks too red and looks really fake, and so this is just sort of like the perfect shade for me. I also love this is like a triangle, so it's not like a tiny fine point pen style, which again, if you like that, I totally get it. But I have a lot of area I need to fill in. I need something that's going to be a little bit bigger and quicker, and I love not having perfect looking brows. I don't like a really like carved out brow. I don't like it to look too unnatural. So even though I was really into like a laminated look in end of 2020 and into 2021, I've kind of like tamed it back to a more natural brow look and really just been loving this. It's also refillable. I actually just purchased a refill on their site during their holiday sale. So I love that I can just refill this, and really affordable, just a great, great brow pencil. And I've also loved the Merit. This is their 1980 brow gel. Yeah, so I use the shade Brown, but I actually just tried their neutral one, which is just like a clear, and it's fantastic. This adds a little bit of color, some nice texture, just again makes my brows feel a little bit more full. It's not the type of brow gel that's going to like freeze and hold your brows up in that laminated way. So if you like a more like fluffier, natural looking brow gel that's just going to give you a little bit of color, this is fantastic for exactly that. And that's just kind of like my style and preference. So highly recommend both of these products. I would love to see Merit come out with a brow pencil of some sort. I know they're into the like the minimal look, and I would love to go more minimal, but I plucked my brows away in the 2000s. I need a brow pencil. Like Merit has to come out with something, and I could see them coming out with something just like this. I think there was a very popular winner of 2022, and that is Make Waves Mascara by Tower 28. this just gives the most voluptuous kind of lashes. It really gives volume, length, curl, kind of everything you'd ever need. And it's not for the people who like a very fluffy natural lash. But I will say, I have extremely sensitive eyes. I mean, there was a good chunk of this year where I couldn't wear any mascara at all until this launched because everything flaked. And some formulas burn my eyes when I apply them to my lashes. So I don't know what I'm allergic to in a lot of mascaras, but tubing tend to work the best for me. And while this isn't technically a tubing mascara, it comes off completely with just water. And I've never had any eye irritation or issues. And I have to use, you know, like false tears and all of that stuff to help with the dryness in my eyes, and it's just so good. I'm just so thankful that Tower 28 came out with such an incredible mascara this year, the year that I needed it the most. And I will say Merit is still one of my top favorites. It's tubing. It gives a really fluffy, natural, everyday lash. Again, I don't have a lot of irritation with this, but I did find, like, when my eyes were really irritated, I still had to end up avoiding this, but it's still my go-to for like a really fluffy natural lash. And while this formula, the Sky High, this is still my favorite drugstore formula, and it was last year too. And I would say this is more of a hybrid formula. And again, it comes off completely with water. I get no transferring though, which isn't the biggest thing for me, is that prior to using tubing mascaras or mascaras that don't dry all the way down and turn like almost hard, is that I would get tons of transfer. I never get transfer with this. I get great curl and length, not as great a volume, but it's still pretty fantastic. And since they launched their new primer, and it's colored, it's like a dark brown or a light black kind of base. I felt like with this prior, you couldn't really layer too many layers of this before it got really clumpy and kind of looked bad. But these layer so well together, and even though this just launched within the last month, I had to mention it because this was going to make my favorites kind of drugstore anyways, but these together are chef's kiss. So good. Eyeliner was not something that I've worn for many years. I actually did a black wing every single day in my 20s when I worked a corporate job, and again with my full face of makeup, and then I stopped using eyeliner altogether. I liked a more natural look, and I still really do. I love a good wing occasionally, but I really just have fallen in love with eyeliner again this year, and that is because of Victoria Beckham Beauty. The Kajal liners are just so creamy and easy to work with. I can take a brush and kind of like flick it on and get right in the base of the lash line if I just want my lashes to look thicker. It's just great on the waterline. She launched these beautiful shades. I was obsessed and using Cocoa and Bordeaux and Cocoa pretty much exclusively this year until she launched Fig, which is the purple. I love purple with green eyes. It's just so pretty. And then I also grabbed two of the jewel liners, and I've been wearing them nonstop around the holidays in the shades Sequin Green and Gold Lame. It's just, they're so beautiful. They're so creamy and easy to work with. And people will DM me and say, you know, I was blending this out and it blended away to nothing. And these are really creamy and therefore easy to blend and move around. But then I find once that they set, they don't budge. So I really love that. But I will say, if you kind of like blend and blend and blend, they will disappear before they've set if you've worked with them a little too much. So my recommendation is always to, you know, like manipulate them where you want, but don't over blend, and use a brush if you want to, you know, hold on to more pigment. But they're just so creamy and beautiful and kind of made me fall in love with eyeliner again. So fell in love with the Make Continuum Waterproof Gel Liner. This is specifically in the shade Galaxy. The most gorgeous teal green. I just love a pop of color. I just really fell in love with this color, and I love a good teal eyeliner. And these are really stiff and not as blendable, but I find that these are incredibly long wearing, again, waterproof, so these last and last. These are fantastic, especially I find for the summer, because again, they're completely sweat proof and just kind of like fun to amp up a look with a fun color. So I do really enjoy theirs, but especially this color. I have a newer eyeshadow product that will not surprise you that it made this video, even though I feel like it can't quite make this video because it just kind of launched, and I've just kind of been playing around with it over the last two months, 1 month, 1.5 months, something like that. So this is the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes. This is, if I were to create an eyeshadow palette, this is exactly what I would have done. And I don't have a palette that has any of the kind of shades that give that very like wet, sparkly look on the eyes. And so I haven't bought an eyeshadow palette since Natasha Denona came out with the Glam palette, which is the last one I bought, which is a very neutral palette as well. But even then, the like shimmer and top coats are different in that palette than this one. And so I don't own a ton of palettes, even as a beauty blogger, influencer, whatever. I have like a Pat McGrath, a Natasha Denona, now I have the Makeup by Mario, and I have a couple Tom Ford palettes, but that's really it. So it takes a lot for me to actually purchase a palette, so I feel like this was worth mentioning. I've been really enjoying playing with it. It's great for every day, it's great for events, it's just going to be one that travels with me everywhere all the time. But I also want to mention the Armani eye tints because I've used these before, but I kind of like fell back in love with them in 2022. I love the shade Cold Copper, which is shade 9. That's just like a perfect neutral champagne that's great every day. These are incredible because you just apply them on the eye. You can blend out with your finger and then they set and they don't budge and they last all day long. I also love shade 8, which I think is Flannel. This is just sort of like a very light, it has a pink reflect, and when you apply it, it just makes your eyes like bright, but to the average person, they probably couldn't even tell you have anything on your eyes. But I love this if you want a very natural look for every day. This is perfection. But then I also love this sunset color, which is like a purpley red. The thing that is so great about these two is that you can apply these over powders, over creams. They work well together. They work well with other eyeshadows. And so like I would apply this and then like I could use a smoky eyeliner or a shadow and just like smoke it out and make it like really amped up for nighttime. So these are just extremely versatile, and I always recommend them to people who are also like not comfortable with eyeshadow because again, you can blend these out with your finger and then they stay all day. I also want to mention the Lid Lusters by Victoria Beckham Beauty. Chiffon is like the perfect neutral champagne. Again, it's just like that wet looking shimmer, perfect for every day. You could wear this to the office, but it also looks great on top of any other eyeshadow. And then I also love Blonde as more of like an inner corner kind of highlight, or you know, on the inside of your eyes, just really like brightens up any eye look. It also looks beautiful just like popped on the center of the lid. These are so beautiful and I reach for them constantly. They're in my most used makeup drawer right here. And then this is my most used eyeshadow from this year. And when I went to New York City, when I went on that trip with a bunch of different content creators, we had planned this trip together. This is all that I brought, which is crazy. With a trip of other beauty influencers, I brought the Kaja Beauty Bento in the shade Chocolate Dahlia. This going on like year 3. I don't even remember when these launched, but I've been using it nonstop since. Is like one of my favorite little trios. It's perfect for traveling. It has everything you kind of need. This is the most perfect neutral chocolate brown that I'm wearing today. It's just, you can apply it all over the lid and the crease. It's perfect if you have fair skin to just give some definition to the eye. But then you get this darker brown that you can put on the lash line, or you can kind of like smoke out the side of your eye if you want. But like day to day, I could just apply this. And then it also has a really pretty sort of warm champagne kind of like glitter topper that's really beautiful. Every time I wear just the 3 of these shades on my eyes, I always get asked what they are. But I also love the Fractal Freesia by Phytosurgeons. This is like my go-to, again, when I'm wearing on my eyes today. This is my go-to like glitter topper when I just want a really simple, like quick, beautiful look, because again, it's kind of like that wet looking glitter topper that we all know and love. And I love supporting the small brand. The founders and owners are just like the best people ever, and I love their blushes. I have some other eyeshadows of theirs that I also wear, but like this is my most used eyeshadow of all time, but especially of 2021 and 2022. I think I need a new one because it's like we're getting down there. So beautiful on the eyes, and if I could recommend one eye product forever, it would be Fractal Freesia because it's so good. These two, again, like I just travel with this, and you know, like one eyeshadow brush, and you just pat the glitters onto the eyes. That's it. It's so easy and so amazing. I have two lip liners that I want to talk about. This was the year that I discovered the Makeup Forever Artist Pencils, and I just love how versatile these are. I fell in love with the shade Anywhere Caffeine first, but then I picked up Wherever Walnut and I was like, okay, this is my shade. It's just like the most perfect warm toned nude pink, and it's just beautiful, and I wear it all the time. Easily my most worn lip pencil. Well, I say that and then I'm like, okay, but I think this actually, the Tower 28 in Draw Me, which is their brown liner, and again, this is a liner that can be used on the cheeks, on the eyes, on the lips. It's so versatile and I love traveling with it. I just feel like brown lip liners, eyeliner, whatever, this is the most versatile thing you can have in your collection to really like change a lip look. And when you, it seems scary, right? And it looks dark, but when you blend it out, it just gives like the most beautiful definition. I'm wearing it with a pink lip and I just feel like it just changes the lip look completely. And these two together were my most worn this year by far. And I just love, again, you can use both of these all over the face. If you don't have a blush or a bronzer, you could literally put these on your face, and you know, just so versatile and incredible. I will say this one is more of like a harder, waxier, long wearing. And I will say this is still long wearing, but this is really creamy, so easier to blend out and work with on the face, but also just to kind of blend if you like a more diffused look on the lips. I could do an entire video just dedicated to lip products. So I really tried to pick my, you know, narrow it down. I think I narrowed it down to 5. I have 5 lip products here, so I'm really, really impressed. So the first one I picked is the Merit Signature Lipstick in the shade Slip. And this was just sort of my most worn nude, and lately I've been obsessed with Millennial. But this is a beige nude that's quite warm, and again, if you're going for a really dramatic eye look or a pop of blush, this is such a great nude beige lip, and the formula is really creamy, and you can sheer it out or you can build it to be quite opaque. And I love that, just how versatile the Merit lipsticks are. I own every single shade except for one, and honestly, I wore L'Avenue, I wore Cabo, I just got the new Aperitif one. I've been wearing Millennial nonstop. They're my most worn lipstick formula, and so I feel like the entire formula should be in this video, but I did want to mention Slip because, again, I think like up until September, this was my most worn shade in the line. It'll be no surprise that the liquid lipstick vinyl by Rado made it into my video, and this is the shade Flushed. I love all of them, but this is definitely the one I'm wearing today, my most worn, like kind of everyday lipstick shade. I have so much content on these that I don't want to spend more time talking about them, but to be long wearing but make your lips more comfortable after you're done with the day and done wearing it, that's just incredible for a lipstick, because the color lasts all day, but it nourishes the lips like no other lipstick I've ever had. So again, they're not transfer proof, but they really stay inside the lip line. So like not messy when you're eating, just so good and worth every penny of the $50 that cost. One of the launches that I was most excited about this year was the In Beauty Glaze in the shade 9, because it looked like an exact dupe for the Lip Glow Oil by Dior and Mahogany, and it really is, but it's even more pigmented. So you can wear it sheer like how this looks, or you can build it up for more color, and so I love that even more, and it's definitely replaced the Lip Glow and Mahogany as my most worn lip oil, but this is really like a lip oil gloss, and it's so comfortable and nourishing on the lips, and I feel like I'm gonna blow through this. They actually just sent me a backup, and I'm really excited because I feel like I'm making my way through this one really quickly, and it's like my go-to kind of like everyday throw on. Again, I like really comfortable products that are going to make my lips feel better. You know, I'm looking at the theme here, and it's like the most comfortable lipstick formula of all time, the actual most comforting lipstick formula of all time, and you know, like a glossy oil that is super nourishing. And then I'll show you the last two that I have here. My favorite lip balm is the Naturium Phyto Glow Lip Balm. This feels thick and emollient and juicy. The shades are beautiful. The shade Jam is just like a perfect kind of like berry shade. Again, a very similar theme here in terms of shades, but I mean, I think these are $12, $10, 12. I have to double check the price, but so affordable, fantastic packaging. Ugh, that lip balm is incredible, and I hope it was in everyone's stockings because it's so good. And then the last one I want to mention that was one of my most reached for and most worn, and everyone asks me what's on my lips whenever I wear this. It is the Lip Serum Balm Intense and Anti-Gravity by Make. This is actually more of, it's like a pinky nude, a product that is going to make your lips feel better after you wear this. And I think that's the theme here with all my lip products, is that I want my lips to feel better afterwards. This looks amazing on its own. It's juicy, and I love that they launched the intense colors of these because I love the originals, but I just love that they launched intense versions of these because I love the original, but I love a lip color, so I really love these. And yeah, this was my most reach for one. I thought it would be Nude Nova, but this one just has like a little bit more pink to it, and it looks so fantastic on my skin tone. And yeah, I can't stop talking about lip products, can I? Alright everyone, those are my makeup favorites of 2022. Thank you so much for watching. Next up, I'm going to do hair care, which I'm really excited about. And I hope to see you in the next video. If you enjoyed this, it would mean so much to me if you would give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.